All right, let's talk about an icon, the Eiffel Tower. I mean, you know it, you've seen it everywhere, movies, postcards, maybe you've even stood right underneath it. But what if I told you the story behind that famous shape is full of controversy, a demolition plan, and even some pretty wild science? Let's dive in.
Can you believe this? When the first designs for the tower came out, the who's who of the Parisian art world, they were horrified. I mean, absolutely scandalized. They actually got together and published this furious letter calling it a useless and monstrous tower. They said it looked like a gigantic factory chimney that would ruin the city. We're not talking about a few bad reviews here. This was an all-out artistic revolt.
And here's the real kicker. All that outrage, it almost didn't even matter. Why? Because the tower was never supposed to be permanent anyway. It was built with just a 20-year permit. The plan was always to tear it down in 1909. Yep, it was just supposed to be a temporary showpiece, not the forever landmark we see it as today.
So that brings us to the big question, right? How on earth did this temporary monstrosity that was literally scheduled for the scrap heap become one of the most famous and beloved symbols in the entire world? Well, the answer is a pretty wild ride, full of smart engineering, some surprising science, and a total flip in what people thought about it.
Okay, so let's rewind and start at the very beginning, with its, let's say, controversial birth. Because to really get the tower, you have to get the event that sparked its creation in the first place.
So the year is 1889, and Paris is getting ready to host the World's Fair, the Exposition Universelle. This was a huge deal, a global party to show off the latest in culture and technology, and it was also celebrating 100 years since the French Revolution. They needed something big, something unforgettable, a grand entrance that just screamed, "Hey, look at us, we are the future." And that, my friends, was the Eiffel Tower.
Now, here's a fun fact you might not know. Even though it's called the Eiffel Tower, Gustave Eiffel wasn't the one who came up with the design. Nope. The original idea actually came from two of his top engineers, Maurice Cocheau and Émile Nouguier. Eiffel, he was the genius entrepreneur who saw the potential, bought the rights, and pushed the project forward. But it was absolutely a team effort, a real masterpiece of engineering minds working together.
Okay, so just how big of a deal was this thing? Let's get into the numbers, because they're pretty mind-blowing.
All right, so if you measure it today, with all the antennas on top, the tower reaches a whopping 330 meters, which is 1,083 feet. To give you an idea of what that looks like, that's taller than an 80-story skyscraper. It's a seriously massive structure, even now.
But you got to imagine what this was like back in 1889. It was just unheard of. When it was finished, it instantly became the tallest man-made structure on the entire planet. And it held on to that title for 41 years, right up until the Chrysler Building went up in New York. This thing was a huge, bold statement about France's power and ingenuity.
And this wasn't just some big metal skeleton, you know? Right from the start, it was meant for people to explore. It has 3 different levels open to the public. And today, you can even have dinner up there in one of its 2 restaurants. Imagine that, a gourmet meal with that incredible view of Paris laid out below you.
But here's where it gets really, really cool. The tower isn't just a static object. It has a secret. In a way, it's kind of like a living, breathing metal giant that actually reacts to the world around it.
See, the whole thing is made of iron, and there's this basic rule in physics called thermal expansion. When metal gets hot, it expands, and when it gets cold, it shrinks. So as the seasons roll through Paris, the tower is literally growing and shrinking right along with them.
So how much are we talking about here? Get this. On a really hot summer day, the sun beating down on all that iron can make the tower grow taller by as much as 15 centimeters. That's about 6 inches. Then, of course, it shrinks back down in the cold of winter. It's like it's in this constant, slow dance with the weather. And, keeping a giant made of iron in good shape takes a lot of work. Its biggest enemy? Rust. To fight that, the entire tower gets a fresh coat of paint, by hand, every 7 years. And that is a massive job. We're talking 60 tons of paint every single time. Which brings us right back to our big question. We've got this incredible engineering marvel, a tower that literally breathes with the seasons. So how did it dodge its own execution and go from being this hated structure to a symbol everyone loves?
Well, as its 1909 demolition date got closer, something amazing happened. The city realized the tower had a brand new, super important job. With the invention of the radio telegraph, its crazy height made it the perfect antenna. It became this vital communications hub for science and the military. And that new value, that's what saved it from the wrecking ball.
And just like that, everything changed. Public opinion did a complete 180. The very thing that artists had once hated, well, it started showing up in their art. Avant-garde painters like Robert Delaunay saw it as a powerful symbol of the modern age. The world's view of the tower had totally flipped on its head.
And today, its victory is complete. It is one of the most visited paid monuments in the entire world, with millions of people flocking to see it every year. That useless monstrosity is now a totally essential, beloved part of our world, a perfect example of how time can change everything.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. The story of the Eiffel Tower is this incredible reminder, isn't it, that what one generation calls a temporary eyesore, the next generation might call a timeless masterpiece. It really makes you wonder, what are we building right now that could become the iconic symbols of the future?